And finally tonight, as journalists, we're charged with telling stories without bias, but we're also people. So I sat down with some of my colleagues to discuss their personal experiences with racism and as journalists covering the story. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. And for those of you who don't know, this is Tosin Fakile, Carice Jackman, Alexandria Adams, and photographer Dara Golden. Thank you so much for being here. Important conversation that we're going to be having right now. I want to draw on all of your experiences as professional journalists, and then, maybe some of the things that have happened to you in your childhood or early adulthood that you might be able to share with our audience to kind of impart some of your experiences with regard to racism, equality, and just what it's like to be Black in America. So let's start off with this one. Do you remember the first time you realized that you might be treated differently because of the color of your skin?
I remember in first grade, I was going to my first sleepover, and my friend was having this party, and I was really excited, and another little girl that also got invited told her that she couldn't attend the party because her mother wouldn't let her sleep with Black people. And I was, 7 or so at the time, and I was just stunned by that.
For me, I was about 9 or 10 years old. My family was coming back from Atlanta, going to Atlanta from a road trip. And while we were going, this truck behind us kept honking at us. And I remember turning around and I saw a Confederate flag on his car and pretty much try to run us off the road. And we finally pulled over to the shoulder, and he passed by and yelled the N-word at our car. And it was like my entire family was in there.
For me, it's a little different because, I grew up partially in Nigeria and here. But I think the one that stuck the most with me was when I was a multimedia journalist in Albany, Georgia, and I went to a story. I believe it was a fire, and most of the damage was inside, so the other station was there as well, and the reporter was an older white male. He knocked on the door. I was still getting exterior shots, and I saw him knocking on the door. The lady let him in. I go, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is perfect. She let him in, so it's like, it's easier. That means it'll be easier for me to go in. And I go to the door, and I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry for your loss. I hope you're okay. I was wondering if I can come in and get some shots. And she was like, I'm not letting people inside my house. And I could see through the transparent screen door. I was like, I see the other reporter inside with his photographer. I didn't tell her that, but that's what I was thinking. And I looked at her, gave her a blank stare. I was like, I'm really gonna be quick. She's like, I'm not letting people in my house. And I guess it didn't really hit me until I sat in the car, and I was like, what? And I cried. I called one of my friends, and I was like, I just, thinking about it now, my hands are a little shaky. I was like, did I just experience what I think I experienced? And she was like, yeah. And I just, sorry, yeah.
You don't want to believe it, but
yeah.
When it happens, you're just kind of in a state of disbelief, and then it takes a minute for it to sink in.
Yeah.
Looking back, my mother told me when I was maybe in my early 20s, she told me about a time when I was in elementary school. I had one of my best friends was a white kid. We were literally in the same grade classroom from first grade to sixth grade. Me and this kid was best friends, and for the life of me, I was like, hey, let's hang out, over the weekend. Can I go over your house or whatever and stuff like that? And every time he'll give me some excuse. Well, my mom said, I can't, we gotta go to church. I'm like, well, I gotta go to church too. We can hang out before or afterwards, But I just accepted it. I didn't think nothing of it. Later on, my mother explained to me, well, it's because, of your skin color. And it blew my mind. I was like, oh, I just didn't realize it. I was very oblivious to that fact that, his family, it was fine for us to hang out and, be kids at school, but to take that further into, each other's homes, it was not allowed.
I was about 12 years old, summer, school was out, hanging out at a local park with my brother and some friends. And a police car pulled up next to the park, and 2 officers got out and approached us. And they went right up to my brother, who was standing on a swing, and they said, "Are you Walter Johnson?" And my brother looked at him and said, "No." And they asked him a second time. They said, "Are you Walter Johnson?" And he said, "No." And I chimed in, and I just said, "No, that's my brother. He's so-and-so." They completely ignored me. They asked him a third time. They said, "Are you Walter Johnson?" And he said, "No." And they said, "Don't lie to us, boy." We know you are because you're about 6 feet tall, you have a bushy afro, and a pick comb in your back pocket, which described about 70% of the African Americans in my community at that time. They were about to actually haul my brother away to jail. The white friends we had grown up playing with who were there spoke up and said, "That's not Walter Johnson, you've got the wrong guy. His name is so-and-so, we've known him all our lives," and the police left. And I wonder even to this day, what would have become of my brother, how it would have changed him had he been taken away by the police officers who wanted to arrest him. That's when I realized that the color of our skin makes a difference. What has it been like to cover the story perhaps of this decade in George Floyd's death?
It literally brings almost like, I guess, PTSD, because since, I guess you would say, well, dating back to like Michael Brown, we've seen these images over and over and over again. And literally every time I visually see myself possibly in that same situation, I've been very fortunate to not have any issues with the police, or even have any negative racial, anything experiences like that. But I mean, a lot of my close friends have. I mean, and whenever they talk to me about this, I mean, it is literally me replacing myself with their words, and I make sure I go through life, aware that hey, at any given moment, if I'm at the wrong place at the wrong time, I can be mistaken for same thing, just like your brother, and I need to constantly be aware of that. And then again, I've always been a bigger guy to most people, so I know immediately I come across possibly intimidating until I'm able to engage with somebody and let them know, hey, I'm nice. Don't worry about it. I have glasses on. I have my smile. I'm not here to cause any harm. But the deal is, I have to be mindful of that and live through that every day I walk out of the house. And that is, mentally draining.
When we're out reporting and talking about this, I think for us, it's important we tell it as it is. Right. We don't try to, I don't want to say sugarcoat, because we don't sugarcoat it, but we tell it as it is, deliver it as it is, and like at the same time not be biased, but be human. And I think we all get to do that.
On like a final note, unity. Unity is so important, right? Especially at a time like this. Are you hopeful, based on what you've seen so far as journalists and members of the African American community, are you hopeful that we'll get to the point where maybe these things will change?
I am very hopeful. I think just seeing how this has touched everyone globally and everyone's reaction to this, the positive stories out of all of this, I think that it resonates with so many people, and people are saying enough is enough. And I'm hoping that that change that people are trying to have right now impacts the world as we know it.
I agree with Alexandria. In this business, you cover a lot of situations like this, protests, racial equality. This feels different. It definitely feels different, and I'm hoping, because what else do you have? Because if you dwell on it too much and think that everything is lost, then I don't know how you keep your sanity. You have to hope that things will get better and keep pushing for it to get better.
The governor of Minnesota, he said something, he said, this has to be the change. Like at this point, because so many, it seems like this one seemed to have touched a lot of Americans. I don't know why, but this seemed to have been maybe that breaking point. And I felt that with him when he said it. And when I felt it, I was like, you know what, this feels like the change. And I swear, Tom, almost immediately I was like, nah. And and for someone like me who's such a happy person, it sucks that that's what I think.
And the video was so powerful that in a lot of people's minds, that is the thing that has been the catalyst for what we've seen, the movement across the United States and across the world, in fact. So maybe, hopefully, things will change. Police policies will change, training will change,
People's
and
hearts.
People's hearts.
My dad said it best. I talked to him yesterday, and he was saying, unfortunately, you can't legislate love.
Right.
And until more and more people, truly put love into their hearts, into themselves and the person next to them. I mean, that's truly the only way that you're going to affect change.
Thanks everybody for coming. We really
Glad we
appreciate it.
did this.
Yeah, this is fun.
Long overdue.